This is a Celebrity Mental Health podcast. I say it's okay to not be okay. And if you have the same answer to me, whether you're watching or listening, click that follow button, leave a rating and a review, and let's keep spreading the word. It's okay to not be okay. Now, let me tell you about my guest today. My guest today can be found walking around with a wheelbarrow full of puns around St Albans, he was one of the Tweenies where who knew where on the clock it would stop? He did. And now he's got the last laugh as he stars as Eric Morecambe at the Noel Coward Theatre from the 25th of February to the 22nd of March before going on tour around the UK telling the stories of the three greats. So without further ado, I'm delighted to welcome to Sakalinska. It's the man who gets me so excited for Christmas each year. It's Bob Golding. Hello, Bob.
Wow, what a build-up. Thanks, Johnny. Yeah, that's great. I mean, to be fair, you should probably get out more.
Do you know what? I get in trouble every year with my dad at Panto when I see, because you do the St Albans Panto each year. The legendary Bob Golding is back, is what we get told.
I know. That wasn't my idea to call me a legend, by the way. It's a marketing ploy.
The legendary Bob and the legendary Ian Kirby joins Bob. And my dad will elbow me all the way through the show because I cry of laughter. You cry. It's the only time that the inner kid comes out of me, and I get so excited when you come on stage. So, from the bottom of my heart, just thank you for being you, Bob.
Oh, bless. Thank you, Johnny. Well, look, dad jokes are something we should keep going for forever now, really, aren't they? They're what keep us going at Christmas. And for some reason, the dads of the world.
I love your puns. When you come on with your real about all the puns, I love the ghosts. The only thing you haven't done recently in the past couple of years, and I think the last one was Mother Goose, where you had the shower scene, is
Yeah.
my favourite moment for you is when you slip on stage. And for some reason, the custard pies, the water has been banned from the stage for probably 4 years or so.
Yeah, I think that's just luck, actually, Johnny. It's completely random how many slosh scenes, as we call them, are in the panto each year, and I think it's just specifically with St Albans, the last 4 years they haven't had slosh scenes. But we did. The 12 Days of Christmas is the big routine, isn't it? And of course, that takes a lot.
Have you done the 12 days? You don't do the 12 days of Christmas, do you?
Oh yeah, I've done it far too many times, and have my knees are not what they used to be because of the 12 Days of Christmas routine. But I've found a way of getting around not slipping over so much, and that is having heavier boots. So I've got very heavy
Oh, so it's
GCSE.
your fault that I'm not crying of laughter then. It's not the stage, it's not even, it's you personally that's decided that. Oh, no.
No. You can laugh at the younger actors falling on their bums, not me. Because at my age, when you fall on your bum, it probably means 2 doctor's visits and then a test at the hospital.
I love that. And for those who don't know, the 12 Days of Christmas is one of my favourite, and it's quite a recent panto thing because it was always the bench and the ghost. Because I go to Milton Keynes, Wimbledon, and St Albans each year, and so you always get the bench of the ghost, and it's behind you. But the 12 Days of Christmas for me, I think, it's only in the past kind of 7, 8 years where it's done, and it's one of the funniest. When it goes wrong, it's brilliant. Absolutely.
Oh yeah,
brilliant.
and it always goes wrong. It will always go wrong. It's just, I mean, you're asking for trouble. I mean, we do meticulously rehearse it. It might not look like it, but we really do. And it is an awful lot of fun. But like I say, I try not to be the one that slips up. And when I was in Northampton, I did a proper slapstick, didn't mean to, double foot swipe and left the ground about 4 foot off the ground and landed on my lower back, which got a massive laugh, possibly one of the biggest of my careers. But it didn't do much for my ability to walk the next day. It did take a while to recover.
Well, I mean, even if it's not slipping up, it's just being naughty. It's kind of it's the end of the show. It's just before the kids come on, and it's just that final bit where you go, right, let's have the big hurrah. And Joe Pasquale was in Wimbledon last year, and
Yeah.
one of the things was like a duck or something that one of the stepmothers needed or something, and he hid it on a light. And so they couldn't find it. So, when you're going, you're up to like day 10, you're going backs and forwards to do the second round, and he hid it and he couldn't find it. I mean, he did break the light of the whole theatre, which was a bit awkward. But yeah, it's just brilliant when you can do things like that. Yeah, generally the light literally just came off the wire. It's like, oh, that shouldn't have happened. But yeah, jokes aside, it's fine. But that's the thing with Panto, it's, I don't know if you know Bob Mills. Do you know Bob Mills?
Yeah, of
Bob Mills?
course.
Yeah.
Lovely Bob. Yeah, love Bob.
So Bob always said to me, Panto is the first time for a child to go to the theatre for the first time, and that's what it is. And I mean, he literally goes like that when he talks like that. For me, what I love about the Auburn Arena specifically is if you go down the stairs to the toilets, all the posters from my childhood when I used to go to Panto. So I probably went up to the age of 9 or 10, then I took a big break, and then since being in the media, I've gone for the past 10 years. And so all
Right.
of those childhood ones are there. So I see the Danny Harmers and when Leslie Grant from there was there and Vicky Michelle, and you're just going, this is what it is. And that building, the Civic Centre, what it holds for me as a child and age 32, it still has the same resonance. And I think for you,
Yeah.
what's it like coming back year after year? Different show, different audience most of the time, but the exact same setup. And yet when that music plays and Bob Golding comes on stage, what is that feeling like, my friend, for you?
Well, I mean, I think most actors that work in theatre will tell you that all theatres around the country are your sort of your safe place wherever you go. If you're on tour, or even if you're not on tour, you're just on holiday, and you know that town in the UK from the theatre. And they become your sort of safe house, if you like, to go to. And any theatre has that welcoming feeling to you, but some more than others. And for me, the Alban Arena has kind of always had my heart. And I'm I'm sort of known, not famous, but I'm known for saying about the building that it's probably not the nicest looking building in the city. Probably go as far to say as it's the ugliest looking building in the city, but it has the biggest heart and full of the most lovely people who make you feel welcome from the moment you get there until you leave. And that's the secret of that place. And that's what a good theatre should be. It should welcome you there, take you away from the troubles of your life, and put you in just temporarily in a nicer place. And the Auburn Arena for me has all of my heart. I've had a little break from it for a little while during the COVID years and a year beyond that. And now I'm back there, and I'm very, it's so lovely to be back. It's like coming home again. It really is.
You talk about getting into that theatre and the heart of the theatre and away from your troubles. What's interesting with comedians on a whole is that most comedians are masking their mental health by using comedy. It's a very quick way. And Jimmy Carr said on another podcast that I do that most people who are comedians have lost someone in their life and they've had to use that humor. So take me back, Bob, to your childhood and where the humour started. What do you think you were masking? How did you fit into school? Who were you in school? And where did that mask come from?
Wow. Yeah. I mean, I did. I had a very simple childhood, actually, a very nice one. My mum and dad were happy and together, and we lived in northeast London. But I do remember a sort of a turning point moment. I was probably around 7 or 8, maybe 9, and my dad's firm. My dad was an electrical supervisor for a big pharmaceutical firm in Enfield, and they took us to a panto, and it was at the Intimate Theatre in Palmer's Green. And Bill Owen was starring as Mother Goose that year. And I had a light bulb moment of looking up on the stage and thinking to myself, I want to do that. That's it. And in fact, at the end of the show, they said, "Does anyone got a joke they want to tell?" And I put my hand up, and my brother pushed me up there because I was quite shy in those days. He said, "Go on, do it." And so he pushed my arm in the air, and they said, "Yeah, come on then." And I went up on the stage and told my joke to Bill Owen, and I got a little goodie bag with an orange in it, I think a Christmas cracker. And a signed photograph of Bill Owen, which I still have to this day, and that was from 1977, 1978, some around that time. So that to me was a big moment where I thought, I think I want to do this. I want to perform. I didn't know where or how we were going to do it. And I think I was always the sort of joker in the class, but not massively. There were other funnier guys in my class. And other, more troublesome people. So, mental health wise, for me, I wasn't really aware of that use, as Jimmy was saying about it, until later, really, in my life, when I've suffered a little bit with anxiety, with health and anxiety. There's been sort of 2 or 3 flare-up points in my life, and I always take comfort in the people in my life during those moments. So I tend not to go insular and shut myself away. I tend to sort of look around at people I know have had issues like that with anxiety or with depression or whatever. And this industry is full of people like that because, as you say, performing is often a catharsis to get around that and to kind of as a shield, a protective shield. But if you think about it, all of us are kind of sensitive beings. And what we do to get over it, if we can, is focus on other stuff. We focus on our jobs. And it just so happens that in our industry, our job is performing and giving some happiness and silliness or whatever, telling a story or drama to other people. And that just happens to fall into that category. But I don't think it's necessarily endemic in this industry. It's just very uh, we're often better communicators. So we're more likely to talk about things that are problematic in our lives to each other, and obviously use work as a focus. I've just this afternoon, met the wonderful Carol Todd, choreographer. I worked with her on a show called Elvis the Musical in the West End in 1996. And she was saying much the same, that when things get tough, she just turns to all the other people in the industry to help her through that. And we try to do that for each other. We're quite good at that. It's a bit like theatres being the safe place to be. I think other performers, actors, producers, casting directors, agents, whoever in the industry, we're there for each other. The good ones are anyway. Obviously, you've got to work your career to work out which ones the good ones are and which ones are the not so good ones. So, but yeah, it's important to talk to each other about stuff like this, and obviously we're all human and different, so we deal with issues in our lives in different ways. But I wouldn't necessarily say that performing helps me with anxiety. I think my work helps me with anxiety because it gives me focus. And I think that would be the same even if I was a welder or a window cleaner or whatever. I think you give a you. I've got four kids, and bringing them up over the years, you know that if they have a big meltdown or a stroppy moment, to take them out of that situation and put them somewhere else changes it completely. And then they're off, and their thought process is different, and it's taken away. Even as babies, that's what if you cry. My wife used to take our daughter if she was, having bad wind pains or whatever as a tiny baby. She'd just go out of the house and go for a walk for 25 minutes, and completely different surroundings. Took the baby's mind off it, and they're fine again. So, and I think as we grow older, that's quite a sort of pertinent way of dealing with problems.
As you say, when things like the pandemic happens and when you're not performing, so yeah, you could go and be a welder, you could go and sit behind an office desk, but for you, Bob, it's coming alive when you're on that stage, when you've got that audience. How did you cope in the pandemic and when you have got that health anxiety that you're not performing because you haven't got that audience there? Were you able to cope with just being Robert at home without being Bob Golding, the showman?
But my wife would certainly say no. I probably had 6 weeks of a very difficult time. We live on a boat, and we just bought a new boat, and it was being built during the whole COVID situation in 2020. And we didn't take delivery of it until the May of that year. So there was a good 6 weeks at the beginning of the year where things were up in the air. We didn't have a home. We were living out of suitcases. We stayed with my good friend Wally Waters, who's an incredible sound engineer who I met weirdly on Tweenies. Actually, I'd met him a few years before on another kids' TV program, but I stayed with my wife, and I stayed with him, and it felt very temporary, and it didn't feel like I was solving any issues. And like you say, there was no work, so I couldn't channel anything elsewhere. So I was left to stew to my own thoughts, and that's not great. I think any performer or any self-employed person is at their worst when they're not in work. We stew in our own juices really, so we just need that focus to pull us through. So I didn't cope very well during that for I would say a good 6 weeks. But then once we got delivery of our boat and we moved on to it, my shoulders came down, the sun came out. I don't know if you remember, it was a beautiful summer, and things felt much better again, and it went away, and touch wood, I've not had anything since then. But again, I lent so heavily on the people that mean so much to me in my life. I've got such a good friend network, thankfully.
I'm so pleased with you. Well, look, you mentioned the Tweenies. Let's delve back into 1999. I'm so excited. And obviously, we'll then come on to your show with Eric Morecambe and everything like that. That you can see at the Noel Coward Theatre, the Last Laugh Play.co.uk for tickets. But look, everyone wants to know all about the Tweenies because for me, when I was doing my research, I got so excited about the behind the scenes. Like, I read the book from Lala, who was in the Teletubbies. And then to find out that Ian, who I knew as the king of Fun Song Factory, then
Yeah.
created the Tweenies, I was like, this is literally my childhood. And so I started watching the Tweenies and going, oh, look, where's the clock going to stop? And, seeing you. So I think let's start, before we get into it, I think we've got to have a bit of Max and Milo.
Justin Fletcher and I, who Justin being the voice of Jake and Doodles in the Tweenies, we were sharing theatrical digs, the places you stay when you're away from home, basically, in Coventry. And Ian Loughlin and Will Brenton, who were the creators of Tweenies, suggested to us that we put some voices down on tape and send them into them so that they could play them to the BBC. So we did, and we did about 10, 15 voices each on an old tape recorder where you have to press play and record and a little microphone attached to it. And we did these silly voices. We didn't think much of it. And then we suddenly started getting caught up in the hype because we were doing the panto with Ian and Will in Coventry at the same time. And they were saying the BBC are very keen on this idea. So then we got the green light and we were all in it, and myself and Colleen Daly was in it, and Sally Priceick. They were the four main voices, which we knew were the voices of Jake, Bella, Fizz, and Milo. Then it was start learning how we're going to perform these characters. So I eventually evolved. Milo came first because obviously he was one of the principal characters, and we wanted to make him sound quite young, but very confident. So his voice would go quite high, and he was quite assertive, and spoke like that, and said "Fabberoni" and things like that all the time. So it took a while to get to that voice, and it's quite tiring on the old vocal cords. So that came, and that was fun. And then Justin sort of developed his voice. He went sort of deeper and small. I mean, I can't do it. I wouldn't dare to go into his territory. But he developed Jake as a character who was always the youngest character in it. And then we had these two adult characters. There was Max and Judy. Now, they didn't have a voice for Judy at the time, so all the female voices that we were working with at the time, they pitched voices as well. And I, amongst other VOs, pitched some ideas for Max. I was a big fan at the time of John Shuttleworth, the comedian, Graham Fellows, who had this great character, John Shuttleworth, who sort of spoke like that. Come on then, Ken. Oh, yes, my Austin ambassador. Why, Reg? Why? He'd do these comedy songs, and Pigeons in Flight. It was sort of slightly larger than life character, but with a cute, soft northern accent. So I thought maybe we'll go down that route. And sort of, I put the voice slightly further back in my throat, and I thought he would be a bit of a performer, so he had a bit of vibrato in his voice when he spoke. Come on then, Jake. Oh, stop picking your nose, Milo. It's not nice. And we developed that into that, and we all sat around laughing. And then Sinead Rush, who was one of the skin characters, that's what we called the actors that were inside the costumes. They were all sort of 5 foot or under. And she came from Neary in Ireland. And she had this lovely soft Irish tone to her, and they said she'll be great for Judy. So she got a double bubble job out of it. She was in the suit for the costume for the character, and then did the voice as well. I think that was the case. That was the only actor that did the voice and was in the character. But that was only when we did location. So obviously in the studio, everything was scaled up. So we had Simon Grover, he was 6'5", or still is 6'5". He played Max and Judy because he was that much taller than the kids that were in it, So it all worked out in the end, and it was nearly 4 years of my life that I'm very proud of. The work that went into that show was immense. Which is probably why it won a couple of BAFTAs, over the years. It sort of led the way in that sort of theatre.
How
So
did it
yeah.
work with the voices and then the costume side of it? So, in the Teletubbies, it was always live. We know that if you're in a costume, literally, you're talking at the same time. You might have a microphone, like in The Masked Singer. But for you guys, where there's so many added layers to make sure everything works synchronicity style, how did you actually day to day go about creating an episode of the Tweenies?
Day one, the skin actors, the people in the costumes, they would rehearse the scenes of, I think it was 4 episodes at any one time, like a theatre play. They would rehearse it without any costumes on or anything like that. Meanwhile, the voice actors, we were in another room doing all the songs, learning the songs and going through with the musical directors, Liz Kitchen and Graham Pike. And Barry Bignold, all the music. So, and then at the end of that week, we get together, we watch the skin actors do the scenes, we would make notes, then we would do the voice as they had shown us what the scene was containing, and they would mime it. And then we'd record it with the heads off vocally. And then the next week, we would go into the studio. They put all their heads on and the costumes on, and they would press. Wally Walters would press play back onto the studio floor with the voices that we pre-recorded, and the voice actors would use their animatronics to control the face of the character on stage. So it was quite a convoluted way of doing it, but it was really groundbreaking at the time with the incredible knowledge and talents of Neil Scanlon, who'd just done the movie Babe 2, Pig in the City, and had worked with Jim Henson previously and started his own company. Neil's gone on to win Oscars and all sorts. It was a groundbreaking piece of television and something I'm very, very proud of.
So for me as a radio person and anyone listening who loves audio, just take me through how you do that recording. So are you doing sound bites? So you would say a line and then that would get cut and then it would be right, roll tape into that 4 or 5 words, or was it a whole scene or the whole it kind of episode where it would literally just be played and the actors would just have to improvise based on what they're hearing throughout and it was all cut together audio and then the video was all cut together.
No, no, no. There was never any improvisation. It was all very meticulously scripted by a team of scriptwriters, overseen by Ian and Will at the time. So everything was really regimented. It had to be like a conveyor belt. It was a bit like working on a soap opera because if you know how they work on soaps, it's in and out, in and out. Yeah, and you're very rare that you get one scene that you have to shoot in 2 or 3 different ways. We had 3 or 4 cameras on every filming day that would just shoot everything at the same time. So it was rehearsed like a radio play essentially, and then acted out to the voices that were pre-recorded. So, but there were several stages to that. So, and then occasionally we would have to go back and drop in different words, different lines if it needed to, if there were edits that we couldn't do, post. So that we'd have to go in and re-record stuff. For example, the second dog of the series was called Izzles, but she was originally called Sizzles. But there was a copyright infringement on that because someone owned the rights to the name Sizzles. So every episode that we recorded up to that point, it hadn't aired yet. It was something like 50 episodes. We had to go back and drop in the word Izzles instead of Sizzles. It was quite crazy. Yeah, that was a fun couple of days.
You obviously had the Tweenies back then, and that ended in about 2004. But then you get to the point where you go, okay, that's done. Kids TV is getting really weird now, and you're going, right, we're going to have the CBBC channel, the CBeebies channel, and then, bringing it up to date, people are going, well, there's no TV anymore. Kids are watching YouTube. They don't watch TV. They watch Peppa Pig. Can the Tweenies come back? And also, can we save children's TV? Because for me, my favourite memories are of TC9 at Television Centre, where CBBC did all their continuity. For you, the Tweenies was so iconic. So is there a chance that Tweenies can come back, following Ballamore and the Teletubbies coming back, but also kids' TV coming back?
Oh, Johnny, I wish I knew the answer to that question. Obviously, I would love it. I was asked last year if the same question, will Tweenies come back? And I said, well, I would welcome it because it was a really good time of our lives. It was a groundbreaking time. We had so much fun on the show, and the characters were very well loved and appreciated. So for it to come back would be amazing. It got slightly construed, my opinion, in the press, and that made some headlines saying Tweenies is coming back, and I was getting phone calls saying, "When's it coming back?" And I said, "No, I said I hope it will. Not that it will be coming back, but." So I would jump at the chance, Johnny, but I think it's fairly unlikely to happen. But you never know. You never know.
Never say never. More things in the pipeline. I'm busy at the moment doing my Eric Morecambe show around the UK. Maybe after that, I've got the Auburn Arena Panto, but maybe next year there's a little window in my time that I could do between us.
Well, exactly. At the moment, I'm sitting in the dressing room of the Theatre Royal in Brighton. We've just opened a new play called The Last Laugh, and it's all about Eric Morecambe, Tommy Cooper, and Bob Monkhouse that Paul Hendy has written. Paul Hendy of the Panto,
Evolution.
Evolution Productions. He writes and produces all our pantos as well. So there's a slight link there, and he's very passionate, as we are in the cast and the crew, about comedy of yesteryear, and hopefully promoting it and flying the flag for comedians like Eric, Tommy, and Bob.
So what can we expect on The Last Laugh when we come and watch her?
It's a play set. It's a fictional play about factual characters set in this dressing room, all in their respective last gigs. That certain part of it is open to the audience, but it's full of comedy references, loads of jokes, loads of laughs. There's even some songs, and it becomes very poignant and quite moving towards the end of the play. I'll give anything away, but we've had plenty of grown men crying in the audience, and thankfully we've been having lovely reviews as we've been going. So it's got a big. We're at the beginning of a rather long journey of the play. So we go to the West End for a month at the Noel Coward Theatre on St Martin's Lane, and embark on a 13-week tour of the UK around all the big receiving houses in the country. I think we're there for a week long. I'm actually joined at the moment by Damien Williams, who plays Tommy Cooper. He's sat next to me. Say hi.
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 Hi. So we've got Tommy Cooper and we've got Eric Morecambe in the room right now. So, final question for you both, actually, if you would like to join this as well, Damien, is what did they mean to you? I mean, for you, Bob, you were in 2009 Edinburgh Fringe as Eric Morecambe. You know, you've had his blood effectively on you for such a long time. What are the two comedy greats mean for the two gentlemen that I'm sat in front of right now?
We're super fans. We're nerds.
We are. We're comedy nerds. Also, Tommy Cooper was the reason I got into the business in the first place because I just loved him from a kid. Used to watch him with my dad, like a lot of people did. And I really just got into it. And he influenced me a lot in just the way he was and his bravery and his comedy. And that's why I got into it, really.
What about you, Bob? What was Eric for
Yeah,
you?
absolutely. I mean, I've always been a fan of that vintage comedy, if you want to call it that, to put it in a category. Even before I did the Morecambe show, on my phone. I have Will Hay, Norman Wisdom, Arthur Askey films. You know, The Crazy Gang, all that kind of stuff. That meant a lot to me. It's very comforting as a kid. Laurel and Hardy are big heroes of ours, but particularly because they were always on the BBC, like BBC Two. If you were ever off school, at lunchtime, 2 o'clock or something, they rerun the old Laurel and Hardy films, which I wish they would do now because there would be another whole generation of kids going, "This is brilliant."
Yeah.
Because don't forget, in the 70s and the 80s, colour TV was kind of that was the norm. It was we're very lucky to have colour telly. So to have black and white, for me, I always looked at it going, "Oh, black and white's boring." But then suddenly these amazing comic characters in Laurel and Hardy, Stan and Ollie, doing their stuff made black and white really cool. And so then I started getting into it, and then Harold Lloyd was on a lot. Charlie Chaplin, Buster Keaton, all those old greats of the silent years. It just suddenly hit home for me, and I think for you as well, didn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
We love all that, and so this is our love letter, really, along with Paul Hendy's, and for the passion that we feel for that kind of comedy,
Yeah.
Oh, amazing. Well, you can see Damien and Bob at the Last Laugh Play, www.thelасtlaughplay.co.uk for more ticket information. They're obviously at the Noel Coward Theatre for the next month, and then they're all around the UK for you. You've been watching or listening to So Kidding Scared me, Johnny Seifert. If you love a bit of nostalgia and you love a bit of CBBC, where Bob started, there are interviews with our era of hosts, including Angelica Bell, Dick and Dom, Anna Williamson, and Connie Hutt, all in the library. And if you enjoyed the episode today, click the follow button, leave a review and a rating, and let's keep spreading the word. It's okay to not be okay. On social media, at Johnny Seifert 92 on TikTok, and at Johnny Seifert at Skilling Podcast on Instagram is where you can find me, where I put teasers of all the other episodes, as well as we keep saying it's okay to not be okay. I'm Johnny Seifert. Thanks so much for watching or listening. Until next time, thank you and goodbye.